Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this webinar on the Crossrail commercial assurance process. So just to get started, a little bit about me. So my name is Richard Wood. I'm Associate Director working with Turner & Townsend, and I'm the current Head of Performance Assurance and Commercial Assurance at Crossrail. I started my career back in 2007 after I graduated from University of Reading with a degree in Construction Management and Surveying. And I joined Turner & Townsend's graduate programme in September 2007, working initially within the health sector. A year later, I joined our aviation division and worked across the Terminal 4 refurbishment programme for around 2 years, where I eventually led the commercial closeout of that programme before moving on to the Terminal 2 redevelopment, becoming cost and commercial lead for the Information and Control Systems project. 18 months later, I became the lead of Turner & Townsend's managed service for this project, which included cost management, commercial management, risk, planning, change management and document control. I helped establish commercial closeout processes for the T2 programme before moving across to help set up Heathrow's Q6 programme. In August 2014, I joined Crossrail, so I've been here for just over 2 years now, and as mentioned, my current role is the Head of Performance Assurance and Commercial Assurance, and I've also played a role in coordinating the completion of the programme controls elements of the Learning Legacy programme. For those that have been present at previous webinars, you'll be aware that there are 12 Learning Legacy themes which are organised by function. These are based on the themes identified by the London 2012 Learning Legacy and have been further developed in consultation with Crossrail's partners. Crossrail Learning Legacy website is organised around these themes, and I really would encourage you all to take a look if you haven't already done so. It's an excellent resource. For those that have utilised it, a new wave of information has recently been released throughout the summer, so it's worth going back to see what's new. Please also do let us know your feedback. We're keen to make sure it's as useful as possible for the wider industry, so please do let us know if you have any feedback. Program controls falls under the program management highlighted in the top left hand side there. As mentioned, this webinar forms part of a series of webinars, and this topic on the Crossrail commercial assurance model is the last in the series. A lot of the content I'll be discussing today is also held within the Learning Legacy website. If you've missed any of the previous webinars, then as mentioned, they've all been recorded and can be found on the APM's YouTube channel. So onto the objective and the structure for today. So the objective is to provide you with an overview of the Crossrail commercial assurance process, how it's proven a key tool in assessing, supporting and assuring that delivery teams and our first tier suppliers are operating to a level of commercial performance that will enable Crossrail's cost and commercial objectives to be met. I'll start by giving an overview of the Crossrail programme, as my colleagues have done on previous webinars. It's useful context, but I will try and get through this as quickly as possible in order that we can spend more time on the commercial assurance function, the commercial assurance process, after which I will hand back for the questions and answers. So let's start with the programme overview. Crossrail is amongst the most significant infrastructure projects ever undertaken in the UK. It will really change the way people travel around London, improve journey times, ease congestion and offer better connections. Crossrail has a funding envelope of 14.8 billion, and it will increase central London rail capacity by around 10%, supporting regeneration and cutting journey times across the city. Crossrail route will run over 100 kilometres from Reading and Heathrow in the west, through 42 kilometres of new bored tunnel under central London to Shenfield and Abbeywood in the east. The blue lines on this map show the works delivered by Network Rail, who are upgrading the existing routes to take Crossrail trains. And the pink section in the middle there is the new tunnel section under London. There will be 40 Crossrail stations, including 10 new stations, and Crossrail will bring an extra 1.5 million people within 45 minutes of central London. Crossrail will link London's key employment, leisure and business districts of Heathrow, the West End, the City and the Docklands, enabling further economic development across the UK, amounting to an estimated 42 billion. First Crossrail services through central London will start in late 2018, and an estimated 200 million annual passengers will use Crossrail. In terms of current construction, Crossrail is still one of Europe's largest construction projects currently on site. Work started in 2009, and at the peak there were over 10,000 people working across 40 sites over London, and over 100 million working hours have been completed on the Crossrail project so far. 8 tunnel boring machines were used to construct the 42 kilometres of new tunnels under London, and this work completed in May last year. And work to fit out our new stations as well as the tunnels infrastructure is well underway, and we are now around 79% complete. Crossrail will also link into the existing London Underground and Network Rail infrastructure, as demonstrated by the graphic at the bottom of the slide. Although we're a London-based programme, the impact on the supply chain across the UK has been very wide-reaching. Over the course of the project, we expect there to be at least 75,000 opportunities for businesses, generating enough work to support the equivalent of 55,000 full-time jobs. I also mentioned that at peak construction, over 10,000 people were working across more than 40 sites in London. It's not just London and the South East that benefit from Crossrail though. Firms right across the country of all sizes are winning business. 95% of contracts have been awarded to companies based within the UK, 61% of which are outside of London. 58% of these are SMEs. So in terms of the stations, this slide really does help to emphasise the scale and complexity of what we're trying to achieve at Crossrail. For those who are familiar with London, this map shows a map of Finsbury Circus. And under Finsbury Circus, the Circle Line connects Liverpool Street Station with Moorgate. The Central Line passes through Liverpool Street. The Northern Line passes through Moorgate, which also acts as the terminals for First Capital Connect trains. And there is also an old post office railway which passes through the area. And if we were to overlay the Crossrail station on top of this, as you can see, the scale is truly impressive, as well as the complexity of building around and connecting into the existing infrastructure. Mass Transit Railway, MTR, will be the operator of Crossrail trains, and they are already operating the London Overground as well as railways in Hong Kong, Melbourne and Stockholm. They have taken over operations of the old rolling stock between Shenfield and Liverpool Street under the TfL Rail brand as part of the lead-up to Crossrail operations. In May 2017, the first new trains will enter passenger services on this line between Liverpool Street and Shenfield, and TfL Rail services will operate between Paddington and Heathrow in May 2018, replacing the existing Heathrow Connect service. In December 2018, Crossrail becomes the Elizabeth line, which opens between Paddington and Abbey Wood, Liverpool Street to Shenfield and Paddington to Heathrow T4. And by the time we get to December 2019, the Elizabeth line will be fully open. Crossrail is a fully funded programme with an overall funding envelope of 14.8 billion, and this slide shows the breakdown of where this money comes from, the lion's share being the DfT and TfL. There is a very real culture on Crossrail that with all this public money being spent, we need to be constantly able to demonstrate value for money. This has and will remain a very high priority until we complete, and it's the overriding objective of the commercial assurance process. Crossrail Limited was established in 2001, and it's the company that will build the new railway. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of TfL, and it's jointly sponsored by TfL and the DfT. Once the railway is complete, it will be handed over to TfL and run as part of London's integrated transport network. Crossrail Limited have established a strong vision, which in summary is to safely deliver a world-class railway on time and within our funding envelope, setting the bar for future major projects and programmes and leaving a legacy of improved performance within the UK infrastructure sector. Underpinning this overall vision are four key objectives, which are we safe, are we on time, are we within funding, and are we world-class? And everything Crossrail does, everything that we report, all the decisions which are made are linked back to one or more of these four simple questions. So moving on to the main purpose of today's webinar, the Crossrail Commercial Assurance Model, which has proven a key tool in assessing, supporting and ultimately assuring that delivery teams and first-tier suppliers are operated to a level of commercial performance to enable Crossrail's cost and commercial objectives to be met. So what is commercial assurance? The scope of commercial assurance spans across the Crossrail programme, with a particular focus on contracts where Crossrail have directly engaged main contractors. Commercial assurance focuses on assessing, supporting and assuring, as I mentioned, the delivery teams and first-tier suppliers. The principal objectives being the achievement of value for money and predictability. The aim is to enable a level of sustainable self-assurance to be achieved and demonstrated for programme stakeholders, delivering confidence, control and adding certainty of outcomes, all of which supported by robust data analysis. The accountability for successfully operating the commercial assurance function falls within programme controls. However, it does rely on various heads of function falling within the remit of commercial assurance. I will explain this in a bit more detail in a few slides' time. In terms of the vision and objectives, the overriding aim is to provide assurance to stakeholders that Crossrail will be delivered on time and within budget. The commercial assurance procedure, which has been published on the Learning Legacy website, if you haven't already seen it, outlines five key objectives. Firstly is to proactively support delivery teams in establishing best practice commercial controls. Secondly is to support the building of commercial capability through bringing in learning from the wider industry. Thirdly is to help drive continuous improvement in commercial delivery, as well as helping to drive greater efficiency through intelligent risk-based allocation of functional specialists to reduce man-marking. And finally, commercial assurance aims to provide demonstrable evidence to stakeholders of the commercial management of the programme. So commercial assurance aims to drive sustainable efficiency and wider commercial performance through improvement through progressive performance management and assurance. The commercial assurance function sits within programme controls, which drives the commercial management of projects in delivery. In turn, data from the delivery teams is used to inform commercial assurance activity on a risk-based approach. Commercial assurance aims to help projects set up commercial processes effectively, as well as to support continuous improvement and the building of capability over time. As this capability is established and commercial risks reduce, third-party commercial assurance is replaced with greater levels of self-assurance in order to maintain efficient resourcing of the programme. In terms of the coverage of commercial assurance focuses on post-contract commercial management and is used to assure both the Crossrail delivery teams and first-tier suppliers across 5 key areas. Firstly, anticipated final cost management, which is focused on assuring the approach to compiling and the validity of the reported AFC. This includes assurance that cost and commercial controls such as governance, trend management, change management are all in place and effectively used to provide robust cost performance reporting and control. Contract management, which assures that contracts are effectively administered by the delivery team with key obligations completed. Risk management, which assures that risk is appropriately managed and how risk is identified, quantified, reported and mitigated through delivery. Cost assurance, which proactively identifies weak financial controls, tests the fitness of suppliers' cost systems. Targeted reviews to assure the quantum and entitlement of costs under the contract are also completed under this area. And finally, supply chain capacity and procurement, which is principally focused on assuring the process for identifying and managing supply chain's capacity and insolvency risk. This is identified through proactively identifying second-tier procurement awards, undertaking relevant financial viability checks, and acting on relevant market intelligence. This part of the framework is also used to assure that the procurement actions of first-tier suppliers are in compliance with Crossrail's procurement policy and contract requirements. This model is known as our commercial assurance framework. So the data that we gather through the commercial assurance process allows us to respond to commercial risks in a number of different ways. Firstly, in terms of the data itself, we publish a periodic commercial indicators report, which consists of various quantitative leading and lagging indicators and trend analysis to identify potential areas of risk across the 5 areas I just mentioned. I will explore these indicators in a little bit more detail shortly. Anticipated commercial risks are then addressed through 3 main review types. Proactive planned reviews, which are used during the setup phase to assure that necessary controls are in place and are effective. Deep dive reviews, which are used on a risk-based approach to target specific contracts or areas of the commercial assurance framework. And AFC reviews, which are conducted on a regular basis and used to assure that the projected outturn forecast is robust and focuses on the link between cost and time. And again, I will go through each of these review types in a little bit more detail shortly. But before I get onto that, I just wanted to remind you of the Crossrail reporting arrangements, which were covered in a separate webinar by my colleagues back in July. Firstly, at the base level, we have a standardized contractor dashboard format within the works information. This is completed by the contractor and reviewed by the project manager and wider project team to inform the completion of the Crossrail periodic reports. This contains a wealth of commercial data, including the contractor's view of the anticipated final contract value and defined cost forecast, commercial performance information using known value metrics, contract administration statistics, projected second-tier package awards, cash flow forecasts, risks and issues, and so on. Project teams then use this information to populate the Crossrail cost management systems, the data within which forms the basis of our periodic project performance dashboard, which is reviewed by the central delivery leadership team in the Programme Delivery Board, and informs the collation of performance information into the overarching board report. This is further illustrated by this graphic, which shows the makeup of the Crossrail Programme Controls Toolkit. You can see the contractor's dashboard informing the cost management system PRISM, and the data warehouse which spans this along with the other systems to form the single source of truth. Importantly, this enables the quick, efficient and dynamic analysis of a wealth of data, and all this is used to build our commercial indicators report. So let's take a look at the commercial indicator report in more detail. As mentioned, we take information from the data warehouse and issue this report on a periodic basis. It is used primarily to proactively identify commercial risk, and it's reviewed periodically at a commercial assurance working group meeting, which incorporates all the heads of functions falling under the remit of commercial assurance. And I will explore this group in a little bit more detail again in a few slides' time. The report details commercial KPIs of our main stations, civils and system contracts, and informs the plan for proactive reviews, deep dive reviews and the AFC reviews that I mentioned. Each KPI is assigned a RAG status with allocated improvement actions and targets to a performance improvement developed by the Commercial Assurance Working Group. The report utilises leading and lagging indicators and trend analysis to assist in the identification of potential commercial risk. Not only does the report give an overall assessment of performance of each contract, but is also used to assess functional performance and allows the Commercial Assurance Working Group to assess the performance of the programme at a higher level, identified where general programme improvements need to be made. Additionally, the report allows commercial performance information to be shared with the internal audit team and our audit committee as appropriate. So what are the specific quantitative KPIs that are included in this report? Firstly, in terms of AFC management, we look at the 1 period and 3 period forecasting accuracy, which we expect to be less than 5%. CPI, which should be greater than 1, and the AFC as a percentage of budget, which we expect to be less than 105%. In terms of schedule, we look at forecast milestone completion dates versus planned dates, which again should be less than 1 month on average, and SPI, which we expect again to be greater than 1. In terms of contract administration, we look at the value of open change items as a percentage of the total contract value, which we would expect to be less than 5%. Percentage of aged NCEs, which we define as any item open for more than 84 days, which should be less than 20%. And finally, the freshness of the accepted programme, which should be less than 28 days or 1 period. Cost verification, we look at the balance remaining within the project bank account on a periodic basis, which we would expect to be less than 20%. Otherwise, this could point to an over-accrual in the application for payment or indicate that the main contractor is not paying subcontractors or suppliers in a timely fashion. In terms of risk management, we look at the percentage of key risks reviewed in our risk management system, ARM, which should be greater than 95%, as well as the percentage of overdue risk mitigation actions, which should always be 0. And finally, we look at divergence between Crossrail and the contractor's view of the AFC, as well as the final anticipated contract value. If the positions are getting further apart, this provides an early indication of commercial tension on the project. We expect, however, that the positions are relatively closely aligned and less than 5% apart. So that's the commercial indicator report, and I mentioned that we use it to proactively identify commercial risk and respond to those risks through the use of 3 main review types, the first being a proactive review. This is designed to drive self-assurance into delivery teams and first-tier suppliers in a structured manner, potentially resulting in the opportunity to reduce the amount of independent reviews and audits as the project progresses. They are pre-planned and held during the setup phase to ensure that commercial controls are being set up and operated effectively. Reviews are based around a detailed commercial assurance framework which defines the expected controls, the performance levels and the evidence expected. Owners of the commercial control requirements set out within the commercial assurance framework, they could be either first-tier suppliers or the Crossrail delivery teams, will self-certify that they have controls in place and they are operating effectively. The example on the slide shows 2 commercial controls from the AFC management section of the framework that we would expect to be in place on the contracts with regards to risk management. These reviews may also be undertaken during delivery as part of a periodic assurance process. They may include undertaking a review to aid the formation of a closeout strategy, for example. However, the extent of reviews during delivery is likely to reduce to reflect the level of perceived performance and the recognition of effective controls. In such cases, first-tier suppliers and delivery teams will be requested to self-certify that controls are effective. Therefore, a general trend of assurance activity reduction by an essential commercial assurance team is achieved. The second review type is a deep dive review, which are generally intervention-based on project commercial performance. These may focus on a whole contract or a specific framework area. The commercial performance of contracts is monitored through our commercial indicators report, although a need for a deep dive review may also be highlighted through the Programme Delivery Board, highlighted specifically by a functional lead or sector director, or requested by a member of the delivery team or first-tier supplier themselves. The focus of these reviews are on diagnosing the reasons for poor commercial performance and support improvement through recommendation of appropriate commercial controls to the Crossrail project team. The reviews focus on cost management and forecasting, project controls, schedule performance and the link between cost and time, contract administration performance, cost verification and risk management. The durations of these reviews are generally 1 day, which enables a full review of the target area of focus to be undertaken without causing major disruption to the day-to-day operations of the project. Reviews are also coordinated with our internal audit process to minimise disruption to the project. The outputs of the deep dive reviews are a 1-page report highlighting the key areas of concern identified at the review, as well as allocating SMART actions with action owners and target dates. The template is displayed on the right-hand side of the slide there. Data and themes uncovered through the deep dive reviews are collated by the Programme Controls team and fed into the Commercial Assurance Working Group and functional leads to inform programme direction and decision making. The final review type is the AFC review, which are undertaken as part of a regular programme of reviews to assess the robustness of the project AFC, focusing particularly on the link between cost and time and the project's alignment to Crossrail's master operational handover schedule and other key interface dates. AFC reviews also incorporate the following as required: review the actual cost of work performed, including disallowed cost, accruals, cost collection, allocation, incentives, inflation, etc. The status of subcontract procurement and market trends affecting the commercial position, risk allowances, inflationary risks and other unlet allowances within the forecast, cost and time spreads, pain gain position and any divergence between Crossrails and the contractor's positions in terms of the anticipated final target cost and defined cost forecast, incentives and other project allowances. Again, these reviews are generally 1 day in duration. A 1-page summary output is produced which highlights any areas of concern and SMART actions to address these concerns. Data and themes uncovered through the AFC reviews are again collated by the Programme Controls team and fed into the Commercial Assurance Working Group and functional leads. So all of the data within the Commercial Indicators report and that coming out of the review types is reviewed at the periodic Commercial Assurance Working Group meeting. The primary responsibilities of the Working Group are to coordinate, integrate and manage the successful implementation and operation of the commercial assurance function, complete and implement a 13-period commercial assurance review plan, act as the group that provides internal audit and external stakeholders with appropriate commercial assurance, acting as the first point of liaison with external parties who may be required to undertake reviews of audits of cost and commercial performance, oversee the implementation of the commercial assurance reviews themselves, collect and analyse data to inform programme direction and decision making, maintain commercial assurance framework itself and the performance metrics, manage the output from the reviews, which may include undertaking targeted assurance activity, and providing external performance data to carry out benchmarking and comparison exercises as required to support the demonstration of value for money. The Commercial Assurance Group sits every 4 weeks and is integrated into Crossrail's governance process. Core members of the group are the Head of Commercial Assurance and the various heads of function covered by the Commercial Assurance Framework. The sponsor's project representative is also invited. There are various optional or rotating attendees which attend as required based upon the specific commercial risks at that particular time or the particular agenda of the meeting itself. In terms of the accountabilities, functional leaders, they own the controls and performance framework relevant to their functional area. They own the commercial assurance review plan. They aid in the coordination of assurance reviews, undertake reviews where relevant, provide an interface with an internal audit, and act as a source of guidance to support and aid the installation of appropriate controls and industry best practice across the programme. We also have sector cost engineers and business managers which sit above the various projects. Their roles are to support the compilation of the commercial assurance review plan for their sector, identify and communicate commercial risks and concerns on a periodic basis, again, act as a source of guidance to support the installation of appropriate controls and industry best practice. Then we have the project teams and delivery directors who are accountable to deliver the industry best practice and commercial performance on behalf of Crossrail. They ensure that the appropriate commercial controls and performance levels are achieved as set out within our commercial assurance framework. They commercially manage the first tier suppliers, identify and communicate commercial risks and concerns and aid their resolution. And finally, they report on the commercial performance of contracts within our various periodic reports. And finally, the first tier suppliers who are accountable again to deliver industry best practice and commercial performance on behalf of Crossrail, as well as to identify and communicate commercial risks and concerns and aid their resolution. So in summary, the commercial assurance process is underpinned by our commercial assurance framework, which is used to proactively identify areas of commercial risk. This then enables us to respond in two main ways. Firstly, in terms of program management, where we can implement additional training, guidance, templates, and controls to address functional concerns. Information is also used to allow the intelligent management of resources and direct them to areas of specific commercial risk. A good example of this may be with regards to risk managers. So we have various risk managers, specialist risk managers centrally. We're able to allocate those to the areas of greatest risk. And as soon as capability increases in those areas, we can move them on to the next. That allows us to operate an efficient and effective resourcing model. Secondly, we undertake reviews on a specific contract to assess the effectiveness of commercial controls, build greater commercial capability through knowledge sharing, and address areas of concern through smart actions and additional controls. So as a reminder, the Crossrail Learning Legacy site is up and running and it's well worth a look. There's lots of interesting information on there, a new wave of materials released over the summer. Please do take a look and let us know your thoughts. This webinar is the last in the series of the webinars that we've held with the APM, but all of the previous sessions have been recorded and are available on the APM's YouTube channel. If you would like any more information specifically on commercial assurance, then please do feel free to make contact. I'll now hand back for the question and answer section of today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Richard. Yes, we've got some questions for you. The first question is, did the Crossrail program start with all of these assurance and reporting dashboards in place, or has it been developed or evolved as the program has progressed?
We had certain base reports in place. So for example, the contractor's dashboard, so that was mandated within the contract works information. And we actually developed that dashboard to help our main contractors discharge all of their reporting obligations under the contract. So that's a good example of a report that was established at the outset. But you know, with all things reporting, there is a refinement over time. So although we did stipulate certain information that we require and is built into our Crossrail systems, how we interrogate and interpret that data and provide outputs onto our management team has evolved and been refined over time.
Okay, thank you, Richard. One of our delegates wishes to know what was the meaning of AFC.
So AFC is the anticipated final cost, and that's the projection of what a project is going to cost at completion.
The next question is, what in your view is the new about the Crossrail commercial assurance model compared to the commercial approach used on other infrastructure projects of a similar scale or complexity?
I think well, there's two things that spring to mind really. The first is the way that we automate our reporting suite. So the toolkit that I mentioned is all integrated within our data warehouse, and that enables us to really efficiently spin out particular reports on particular things. A good example being our commercial indicators report. So that's a very efficient report to put together, and it really does enable us to hone in to particular areas of particular contracts or particular functions across the program and understand where the commercial risk lies. I guess then the next thing that springs to mind is the way that we respond to those areas of potential commercial risk. So the fact that we're able to identify commercial risks before they become a problem enables us to then work with the project teams and with the main contractors to try and resolve those commercial risks before the commercial performance of that project starts to erode.
Thank you. The next question, are there further developments that you would like to make to the CAM beyond what is already in place?
I guess there's this question of always the gradual refinement of the process over time. One of the exercises that we're doing at the moment is to look at the commercial indicators report and tailor that to the fact that the program is now 80% complete. So we're looking at changing some of the measures to focus on commercial closeout of second-tier supply chains, etc. So we can actually start to look at commercial risks around the commercial closeout of the program. So I guess to answer the question, there's a gradual refinement over time, and we always need to make sure that what we're looking at in terms of commercial assurance function is always aligned to the particular challenges and concerns of the program at any particular time.
And have you kept all the historical data, and does it get used to aid learning for the future for Crossrail?
Yeah, we do. We have all of the commercial indicators report and all of the trend analysis completed, all stored within a central server. It's all available to the wider project teams as well through SharePoint. And we do interrogate the trends in that data to enable us to come up with program management, decision making, and setting actions for the project teams, for example, to resolve. We will be publishing, as part of the Learning Legacy, a case study around some of this data as well. Unfortunately, we've still got 20% of the program to complete, so we're not able to release some of the commercial data at this point in time. But at completion, we'll be looking at the history of that data and what lessons can be drawn from that.
And how do you measure the value for money of the project?
So there's various ways really. So we look at our particular budgets. So our budgets were set through a robust process. We went through the government's comprehensive spending reviews, we went through the government's review points, and we achieved full funding approval. So we're able to compare the project's commercial performance back against those original budgets which were benchmarked in terms of value for money at the outset. What we're also able to do is to look at the particular commercial agreements that were made as part of the contract and track commercial performance against those contract values. What I would say is that at the point in time where a lot of our contracts were procured, there was a downturn in the market, so we actually have seen a few of the contracts performing relatively poorly against what those initial target costs were, however, still within the bounds of our original budget. So in fact, one of the main ways that we test the value for money is not necessarily looking at the commercial performance against the contract value. It's looking back to what our original budgets were and the benchmarking that we undertook at the outset before procurement took place.
You talked about the redeployment of risk resource within the projects that were showing a less capability or required support. What metrics were used to determine if an area required risk support more than others, and how efficient was this approach?
There's a couple of things really. So first and foremost, we used our commercial indicators report. There were two metrics within the commercial indicator report we look at, which is both around how effectively the risk management system was being administered on that project site. So we look at the number of overdue mitigation actions, and we look at the number of red risks that are being reviewed each period. So if we see that there are lots of overdue actions and the high risks were not being reviewed on a regular basis, that immediately sets some alarm bells ringing that perhaps the project team either requires some additional support or training with regards to the system, or the risk management processes aren't as robust as they should be on that site. What we then do is we identify that risk as part of from the data, and then we review that as part of the commercial assurance working group. In that particular instance, we've liaised with the head of risk management to understand what the particular issues were on particular contracts or across the program at that point in time, and we had ascertained the need to either roll out additional training or to undertake a deep dive review on a particular contract which is performing worse than the rest of the program.
And can you please explain what you meant by aged NCE?
Aged NCEs. So an NCE is notification of compensation event under the NEC form of contract. And what we look at is if a particular change item is open for more than 84 days, and 84 days is derived from the timescales which are stipulated within the works information. If an item is open for more than 84 days, that falls into our aged NCE category, which means there's a change item there which is potentially very complicated, quite onerous for the project teams to resolve, or could indicate that there's a wider commercial tension on that project, which is preventing some of these change items being resolved.
And how did EV for software issues get calculated?
So EV, so we operate at full value across the program. We look at cost and schedule performance indicators. Both of those indicators get incorporated within our commercial indicators report, and that then gets subsumed into the usual review cycle as part of the commercial assurance working group. So earned value is just two of the measures that we use to inform our view of potential commercial risk on the project.
The next question is, at 80% completion, what is the current cost performance of the program? What were the key challenges to cost compliances and course corrections taken?
So we're 80% complete. We still remain on time and within funding. So from that perspective, Crossrail is still very much on target, and we do anticipate delivering the program within our agreed budgets. In terms of cost performance, there have been some commercial challenges. I mentioned the fact that a lot of the contracts were procured at the downturn of the market, and we have actually had to work collaboratively with some of the members of our supply chain to reset the contract values and budgets in certain instances.
Did you have a systems expert at the start of the project so that all relevant systems, software applications could interface and support and delivery reporting requirements? Was it difficult to get all parties on board to support the development, the delivery?
Yes, I think one of the things that went particularly well at the outset of Crossrail is that we were able to work with the senior leadership team to define what the management information requirements were at the outset. Those management information requirements was then converted into a tools and systems specification, and Turner & Townsend, works as part of the program partner, then went to market and actually procured what were the best tools and systems for the program at that point in time. We actually didn't spend a lot of time or money reconfiguring or making the tools and systems bespoke. We bought the standard products off the shelf, and then spent a little bit more effort in integrating those systems through the data warehouse. So that has a main benefit really of the fact that because we don't have bespoke systems, then we don't have a huge amount of cost associated with the maintenance of those systems. We can actually also benefit from the free upgrades from the suppliers. Like I say though, the data warehouse really has been a bit revolutionary for us. It enables us to spin our reports out very, very effectively. We can build new reports and answer questions from our leadership team very, very quickly. And we're also able to operate a very lean reporting function that pulls together the board report and the information for the program delivery boards, etc.
Could you give us an idea of the resources required to operate the commercial assurance model in terms of full-time employees, staff costs, etc.?
Yep. So my current role is the head of commercial assurance and performance assurance. So for those that were on the last webinar, I split my time between the management of the commercial assurance function and the performance assurance function. Within program controls, there's another one or two FTEs which support me in all of the data interrogation, the management of the commercial assurance function. The commercial assurance function then also relies on the support of various heads of discipline which were already in place before commercial assurance came about. So things like the head of risk management, head of contract administration, head of planning, head of change management, etc. So it's quite a lean and efficient team. That it's not a huge amount of additional resource. There's a slight amount of additional resource within program controls, but yeah, again, they would have been on the program anyway, undertaking analysis of program information. And again, we just then pull in support from the various heads of discipline as required